And everyone can see the screen now?
Is it everybody able to see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. But basically, provisioning allows an administrator or the supervisor station to configure some automation tasks to perform across a Niagara network and multiple JACEs that are out there. And it also allows you to have the results recorded that you can refer to after the fact, too, to see if they were successful and whatnot, or see what failed. They were, it's for tasks that would otherwise need to be performed manually by a user using Workbench. Typically, platform type of actions that you're doing. And these provisioning tasks or jobs, some of those could be, you perform station backups, you can install software, you can update licenses, copy files, configure properties, and there are a bunch of other things that can be done as well. That's just a list of a few. It's a series of tasks that can be executed on any number of JACEs that you have on your Niagara network. There are two different types of provisioning jobs. One is that you run one time. The other would be you run on a routine basis. You would set up like a trigger schedule to do, say, weekly backups of stations. It might be like Saturdays at 2 a.m. or something like that. And then they get saved to your user home. And we'll go through that in Workbench to show exactly where that is. Again, regularly scheduled, you can specify the steps that you want to perform. And then in 4.7, they added quite a few more steps because of all the new features that they need for the new edge devices coming out. Again, it's provisioning. It's recommended for scheduling backups. And if you haven't done them, hopefully after this you'll be using this. It's an easy thing to set up. And what's nice about doing the backups, you can set up a retention policy. So you may want to save your last 10 backups, or you may want to save only, back to a certain date, that type of thing. So you don't build up this, many gigabytes of data on the supervisor. Or if you want, you can, have it continually back up without removing old copies. Each job performs one or more steps. Some of them that are listed here, backup, file copy, so you can copy local files, you can copy supervisor files, you can install software, basically software modules, your jar files, to one or more JACEs. There's a reboot, so you can actually perform a reboot across the stations if you want to as part of a job. Robot allows you to write custom code to run on each station. You can have it go through and automatically go out and check for outdated software. I mean, a good one here is if a new patch comes out for Workbench for supervisor, and you want to install it, you can install it on your supervisor and then have it push it out to your JACEs on a network. It comes in real handy when you're talking sites. I mean, there are sites out there that are, not just, 5, 10 JACEs. You can have hundreds of JACEs out there. It just saves a lot of time being able to use this. Some of the requirements, it only runs on the supervisor. So a JACE cannot do provisioning itself to other JACEs. It has to be a supervisor. The supervisors come licensed for it. JACEs do not. There's a provisioning Niagara and a batch job module that needs to get installed. When you're loading your supervisor software, it should already be in there anyway, but it's just, there are the two modules that are used. At the JACE level, they should always be at least at the same level. Well, the supervisor should be at the same level or higher, but it's best to have the JACE match the supervisor's version. The JACE doesn't need any of the provisioning modules. It's just the supervisor that requires those. And they don't require they do require the program module and the program service, which are standard modules that you have in there already. Setting it up on a supervisor, it's basically you add a batch job service to the services folder, and then you add the provisioning NW extension to the Niagara network on the supervisor. And then as soon as you do that, it builds for each of the JACEs 5 extensions. And so any JACE on the Niagara network or any newly added after this is installed, you'll find that you're going to have to enter platform connection information, your credentials for the platform of the JACEs, and then they have these other extensions here that get added, software backup, licenses, templates. There's also another one called Device Bootstrap that's added as well. But I think that one is a 4.7 piece required for bootstrapping a controller before you start doing your some of the other provisioning steps that are required. One thing I made note of was that if you're going to use secure Fox, when you set this up and you connect, you're going to find that the certificates will need to get approved in platform in order for it to actually work. I mean, that's typically standard anyway when you're using FoxS between a supervisor and a JACE. You're going to find that your Niagara network doesn't log in until you get the certificate approved. And that's just a matter of going to your certificate manager, going to the far rightmost tab, finding that certificate that has the little shield that's red, and just approve it.
All right, what's with the licensing on the supervisor for using this?
Well, the supervisors come with provisioning, so they're already licensed.
Yeah. But there was a line there that said you have to license the supervisor. Is that optional?
I was just saying that it must be in the license for the supervisor, and that basically it said the JACE doesn't have it licensed. There's no special setup.
There's a line item for it in the license, but it comes with all supervisors.
They had to add that feature to the license so that they could take away the feature from the JACEs of being able to do that.
Okay, gotcha. Because I don't remember optionally licensing it. Okay.
No, you never have to do anything like that at all. Just like you don't need to install the modules for it either. They're just there.
Yeah.
And basically for the using station backup as an example, and I'll just bring it up live. But we're going to be adding a job prototype and a trigger schedule to be able to do it. But basically what we do is, let me go find my station, and I'm just using 4.6 on this. Just make sure my station's running. Okay, it is. So in the certificate management I mentioned, under the allowed hosts, your JACEs will show up here, and you just need to select the one that's not approved and just say approve. So if we go in and we look at our Niagara net, well, first we'll go to services. I have added the batch job service there, and then underneath Niagara network, if I bring my pallets up here, which will make it easier, there's a provisioning Niagara pallet that you use, and you drop the provisioning extension directly on your Niagara network, so that when you do that, you'll find, if I go here, if we look at our JACEs, you'll see that they have, this platform connection only shows up if you have provisioning, if you have that provisioning extension installed. So in there, you're going to give the platform credentials, if it's using the secure Fox or not, or secure connection to the platform. And then it also has the other extensions. So even if you were to go in and create a new, bring in a new controller, it will come up and have those extensions already in place. That's interesting.
re-input the credentials.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what it does, but.
Assuming I'm in the right connection. Yeah, for some reason I have to re-enter my credentials for that.
Ping it.
Oh. Maybe I fat-fingered it. We'll work off this one. I'm not sure why that one's not.
We've got an authentication issue,
Yeah.
that's all.
Now, if we go in and we look at our wire sheet, the standard in there, if you have that provisioning extension we added, if I go to its wire sheet, within here was where I dropped in a trigger schedule and a backup job. So actually what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and delete them back out. I'll start over. What I want to do is create a schedule so that I back up once a week. So you can go in there and set that up. And then you drop in your prototype, and we'll call this Jace backup. I can trigger that. So then when you go into that prototype, this is where you set everything up that you want to do. If you have initial steps that you only run once, that's the top section. That'll come into play when you start playing with edge devices. You have to put the bootstrap loader in there. That's what goes up. That would be an example of what will go up there. But here is your steps to run for each station. So when you hit the plus, you can see there's an extensive list there of things that you could add to that. So in our case here, we're going to back up stations. And then the bottom part is what stations do we want this job to apply to. So then from there, it'll give you a list of all the JACEs that are within your Niagara network. I'll select them, or you can hit select all and hit OK. Then from there, you can test it, and you can say, okay, I want to run it now. Oh, I got to save it first. So it's running. One should fail. Okay, this one succeeded, so we can go ahead and look at the list of what it did. Just backed it up, and you'll see that the path is there's a Provisioning Niagara folder underneath stations, and it's located in there. The other one's still running.
Wait for it to time out.
And it should time out since we have an authentication issue. But while it's doing that, we can go over here and look in our user home. Under stations, there's a provisioning supervisor. And it's provisioning Niagara. Then you got your station directory. Actually, it's better if I just go from over here. You can see the tree structure of it.
It's under files in the station too.
Oh, that's true.
See, that's an easier place to get.
Yeah, if you just go under files. Yeah. That's where the reports are, but yeah. If I go up here to station.
Refresh that.
Oh. So it should be there from me working on it last week. So if I go up under stations, you'll see Provisioning Niagara station data, and then the JACEs, and then under there you have your backups. So that's where they get stored. So then when you do a station, if you were to go in your supervisor and do a distribution backup or a station backup, all of these are going to be part of that as well. So your station backup for a supervisor can get pretty damn big, especially then if you also have your histories that you're collecting, that you back those up. So those get very big. And if you're trying to whittle down you're trying to do a backup just to get off site to check or whatever, you can take that part of it out and save yourself a lot of space as well. If we go back over here, okay, the other one, that's right, it didn't fail, it was successful because the platform connected fine. It's just the Fox side that didn't connect. But you can go through here and see everything it did on that. And then they also have a view, where is it? Minimize this, go back in here. I believe it's under here. Yeah, if you go to your prototype job list, this is where you set your retention. So you can go in here, I have it retained permanently, so it would just keep on just backing up, making, adding the files and never removing any. So you go in there and change it and say, okay, dispose of it after a period of time, which I wouldn't suggest, because if the first one worked and you walked away from the job and a year later you go back and find it failed every other time, most likely would have blown away the good one. So you can say keep a limited number of executions and keep a limited number of executions per device. And then you give the amount that you want to save and then how long you want them saved for. But that's basically how you would set it up to be able to run your backup. Now you could also, as I showed, you could have it go through here and upgrade out-of-date software if you wanted to, that type of thing. I think those I would rather do attended than unattended.
But if you have 100 cases,
you want to be able to maybe do one manually and then do the rest unattended. Yeah. And then the comment I made earlier about the future uses of the provisioning, and in this case, with like Tritium's Edge 10 controller, you can set up your credentials, your passphrases, you can rename the station. So you have a station set up that you want to deploy in, say, 50 controllers. We want the name to be different in each one. So you can set up a rename station, upgrade out-of-date software where the controller comes with a version of Niagara already built in, so you want to go through and make sure that you have the latest and greatest in there. So that would be one of the tasks that you'd run. And you could have specific jar files. Maybe that controller needs to have the, I don't know, one of the say a Vicom Pro module or something like that. You could tell it specific kits to install. And then you would deploy also the application template, which would actually be the station. The screenshot on the right here is actually a screenshot of 4.7 with the Tritium Edge 10 device, where they have that initial step of enabling a bootstrap mode, and then you go through each of these steps to set that controller up. So you could have, say, 50 of them out there. You could have all 50 listed below and hit all of those with those steps. That's basically the direction that they are heading. Now the Edge 10, I think they said they're taking pre-orders, and I guess they're going to start shipping. I don't know if it's later this month or next month.
I think it's October.
And next month, okay. And this down in the bottom left is actually a template of, or a picture of what the Edge 10 device is. It's exactly the same size and the same style as an 8000, which just has I/O built into it. Any questions on that? Or how are you, I guess I should also ask is, how are you guys using provisioning? Are you using it for other things besides just backing up? Anybody out there? Bueller.
Hey, Frank, it's Brett. Yeah, like I mentioned, the backups is obviously used for provisioning, and if it's not anything major, just a couple jar files that need to be updated, I do those as well. One thing I just realized today, and I didn't before, is the licenses. That kind of makes it nice. So I'll do that in the future.
Well, especially with, you know, the fact that, like with Honeywell Web's coming out with 4.6, you know, all the JACEs that would be out there that you want to upgrade are already probably sitting at a license of 4.4. So they have to go out and, you know, be upgraded to be able to go to 4.6. So yeah, that would be a good example of where you would use that. Anything else that you guys can think of on provisioning, or any questions at all on it?
Any questions about anything?
So the backup provisioning that we just ran through, you could use that on your supervisor as well as what we talked about last month.
Yep.
One or the other, or both?
Yep. You could do both. You could do just the supervisor and back up, you know, that monster. It would be considerably larger because it would have backups of all the JACEs. But you could also cloud backup from all the individual JACEs if you wanted to, too. So you're a little more fault tolerant that way, if you have access to the internet from all the JACEs.
In addition to.
Right. And then you've got, that's really the best option.
Everything to the supervisor and then supervisor cloud.
Well, ideally you would do it the other way. So that way you don't have to worry about, the supervisor for whatever reason decided to stop backing up to the cloud. You just have one potential place for an issue there and everything stops backing up to the cloud. You do it at all the JACEs, you have significantly more ways for it to get up to the cloud, prevent issues. And then you've got the backup in two places, which is always better than just the single place.
Here's a good one, Frank. Could you restore previous backup to all the JACEs? Is that one of the options?
You mean under provisioning?
I think there's
Yeah.
distribution file installer. You can install a distribution file. That might be.
I haven't seen anything.
In 4.7 you definitely can, but
Interesting.
I don't believe that's an option in 4.6.
It's not there.
Yeah.
I mean, like a.
Because
So
there's
we
not.
had a few JACEs we wanted to restore a previous backup, and we did a
Yeah, I don't think they give you enough of the other things that you may need in 4.6 to install a backup. You know what I mean? Because you really need the full commissioning process in order to restore from a backup, and they don't have all those pieces in 4.6. They're all there in 4.7. I mean, really every single step in the commission and really everything that's available under platform is available in 4.7's provisioning.
I'm just firing up 4.7 now so we can take a look. It is, takes a bit to start up.
Well, Niagara 4.
Yeah. Didn't have the thing in the beginning either with the tiles moving around.
Probably because you opened it from console.
No, the other ones would still do it. I don't know. If we look at provisioning.
Oh.
I don't know if I could do it this way or not. The reason because I think I need it,
station open.
but it has to be a supervisor station, so let's do it this way then. Let's close those down.
Didn't you just have a screenshot of it in?
Yeah. Oh, did I? But I don't know if I had the
Well, it had the full process for setting up a edge controller. That's everything that you would need, really.
It doesn't have.
You could use the application template for basically that, right? Because that's just a safe station essentially, but it's not backup.
This here, yeah. Oh, that's right, to the XLS, their spreadsheet. Yeah, it doesn't really show all the steps that are available. Let me go back.
Well, yeah, if you could start up a station there. Does anyone else have any questions on anything else?
Have you guys used that batch job Excel template in 4.6 yet? I'm sure you have. Any feedback
not
on
in
that?
4.6, in 4.7.
In 4.7 for the Edge 10 we did.
Okay, but it came out in 4.6 though, right?
That's a
I thought I remember.
I'm not sure.
At Summits, they were talking about that.
I don't believe that it did, because the real potential of the Excel document comes from you being able to use provisioning to use it to install a bunch of stuff. You know what I mean?
So what is that? Run that Excel doc over one more time. So, because that kind of falls under provisioning a little bit.
You know the XML file stuff that you can do in PCT?
Yes.
Where you give it a bunch of variables, and then you can set those variables across a bunch of different controllers.
Yes. Yep.
The exact same.
Interesting.
So you could.
It's
so
predefined
actually,
that, right? When you can and can't change, I guess.
Well, it actually may be in 4.6, because you could use it to install a bunch of controllers potentially from a template.
Okay.
So in your template, you would have a bunch of variables set, and then those variables you could set from your Excel doc and deploy, you know, like 50 different controllers with 50 different flow set points potentially.
And is that a jar file separate just for the Excel template? How's that done?
I don't recall.
Okay.
I don't believe it's nothing that is outside of your normal install of Workbench. All the modules and everything you need are in there. I believe it's a part of the template module, that sort of architecture, if you're using that stuff at all right now. And it definitely becomes more powerful now that you can use the Excel doc to set up a whole batch of them at one time.
Yeah, it's just something that I've been meaning to look at and didn't really find documentation on yet.
Depending on next month whether or not the Edge controller's out, that might be a good one to do for the next topic, is templates.
Oh, okay. All right, cool.
Because obviously the new Edge controller relies on them pretty heavily.
Yep. Yeah, I guess IP controllers too. You could do some, you know, and you know, any of them really.
There is no distribution restore.
But is there install station?
Install software, install.
There's enough.
Deploy application template.
Yeah, but that's not a backup necessarily though. You could use that. You just would have to do additional work on your backup to make it a template. You couldn't just take the distribution file that you get and deploy it. So yeah, you could work around a backup and deploy it via different means, but there's no straight way to deploy a distribution backup.
Robot.
Yeah.
Don't make any mistakes.
You'd have to write some Java too.
But this is the list of all the job steps in 4.7.
Yeah, that are available, which is basically, I guess, everything outside of installing a distribution backup.
Yeah. Anything else on provisioning? right, and a couple things I had since, well, one, I guess about 2 months ago, Tritium rolled out 4.6. Honeywell last week, I shouldn't say they released it, they haven't announced it, but they released 4.6. I saw it pop up with buildings forums, so I posted it last week. One of the things on 4.6 to keep in mind, you cannot do your 600Es, your 700s, or your 300Es in 4.6 or above. So the highest those JACEs can go to is 4.4. And we'll never go any higher than that.
And 4.6, Honeywell 4.6 is on the Tech Center website.
Right. And Tritium, there are Vicon.
Vicons as well, yeah.
Another thing I found, I guess just going through some things since last time that we met, with Johnson Controls, and I think most of the guys that are on here play with that somewhat. PCT 10.3, we found on, I guess it was Friday last week, now that the Bluetooth adapter has been obsoleted, the MAP gateway is its replacement. As long as you're running the firmware 4.2 or greater, or 4.2 right now, you can use that, the FC bus port and also the SA port. One thing we found on Friday was if you're using the MAP gateway on the SA bus, commissioning won't work. You can download, you can upload, but if you try to do a commissioning if you try to go into commissioning in PCT, it will fail. The only way it'll work is if you use the FC port right now. Johnson Controls support has it up to their developers, and they're trying to find a workaround because they won't be able to, when they fix it, it won't come out until the next release. So they're hoping they can come up with some kind of a workaround for that. You know, which just doesn't sound like a big deal moving to the FC port, but if you have a wireless network, and this site does, you got to use the SA port. You can't use the FC when you're using wireless.
That's a problem.
Yeah. So I don't know if any of you have seen something like that, but I just figured I'd throw it out there while we're talking. Does anybody have anything since, for the last month, anything that's come up, or any comments, or even, new questions, new topics to talk about? It's an open session now. Crickets. Come on, Brett.
I'm thinking.
How about you, Eddie?
Here's a good question for the other guys on the screen here. IP controllers, that Johnson line, and now with the new Edge 10 and F1, everybody think they're going to be using them more often, or are we still going to stick with MSTP? That's a question I like to ask often. Personally, I've been trying to do more and more IP stuff for a number of reasons, troubleshooting the bus and live programming, things like that. So I've been doing more Easy IO and IP based in general for the last probably 6 months, where possible. But I'm curious if other guys have that freedom and flexibility to jump in on the IP bandwagon the way that these manufacturers are anticipating the industry going. How soon that's coming to companies around us.
Yeah, it seems like IP is going to be the future.
Yeah, working with IP is going to be tough. That's going to be a hurdle. Are you installing any IP controllers now, Ed, or?
Well, we were using the Easy IO device.
Oh, you do use them?
Oh, a lot of them. I've been doing them since the beta versions, 5, 6 years. We installed the first beta FG.
Oh, okay, cool.
About 6, 7 years ago. I worked with Lim and Full and Mike Marston and we ran into a site when they had dirty Ps where we didn't have enough horsepower, so they gave us a beta FG to complete a chiller plant once. And so, yeah, we did a lot of them.
Okay. Yeah, I'm curious. I'm excited to see the industry switch over to the IPs. I think Honeywell with the F1 is really going to be the game changer. Really, it's certainly making me want to put more IP stuff in, whatever the existing stuff we work on.
Well, the new Honeywell Spider is going to be online programming, right? Right through the, I'm being told.
Yeah, they're coming out with an F1, and then rumor has it they're coming out with an IP Spider variant later.
Yeah.
One of the Honeywell reps last week, but yeah, I think the F1's due the end of this year or early next year. It's similar to the Edge 10.
The one difference will be the F1. You'll have the ability to either use your Spider programming, your Spider tool logic that you've built your library of applications, or you can use Kit Control to do the programming.
Oh, so you can't take the Spider library and patch it in through IP. It's either or.
It lets you. It's set up that we don't know if it means that you got to pick one or the other, or if it's going to be a hybrid, but it's going to be able to allow you to use your Spider application and also Kit Control. But there has been, we've only ever seen, a new F1 sitting there with nothing powered up, without it powered up, without a computer program set up or, connected to it. So we have not seen anything yet. I imagine we won't until the Momentum Conference in October.
Probably going to have some apps, right? Some basic apps like VAVs and rooftops.
I thought they were going to have the Venoms.
Yeah, I mean, the Venom would already still be there as the, since you'll be able to use their, a Spider app for it.
And they're going to have HTML5 balancing and that's
okay. But I mean, they don't even have a single piece of literature that they've left behind yet either. So it's still
in flux.
I don't know if it's just they're holding out until Momentum have a big splash there, but I mean, I would think they'd have to be coming up on starting to do some sort of beta in the near future. I would hope beta's started before the actual Momentum conference, but we don't know. What else? Good morning, Charlie. Does anybody else have anything? Ken? Kevin?
No, I don't have anything right now.
Okay.
I got a question for under provisioning.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Is there any kind of mechanism in there? Say if provisioning, if there's a corrupted file or anything. Like if I had a site one time, did a manual backup. As it was backing up, I noticed that it completed extremely quick. So it went in, looked like everything completed. Well, when I did a station copy, the station copy actually failed because there was a corrupted file. Is there anything in the backup of the provisioning that would see that? I mean, what constitutes it failing and that it completes okay?
Yeah, I don't know if it actually goes through and checks the integrity of anything.
Yeah, I think the only way that you would know of an issue potentially with the backup is if it throws an error. If you run into an issue like you saw where it thought it completed successfully, but when you opened up the file it was corrupted, I don't think there's a mechanism to recognize that.
Okay, so basically all it's doing for its completed status, it's just if it just goes connects and it finishes, it doesn't. So if it skips a file or whatever, it's not going. There's nothing there to tell you. There's no log file or anything like that.
Well, there's a log file and all of that, but if the backup doesn't throw an error, you know, it doesn't see that there was an issue with the backup itself.
Okay.
There's no way that you would know.
Yep.
Potentially.
What else? Any other topics you could think of to going forward? What we should cover?
Because I think right now the path that we're looking at is sort of the necessary things or the new features that the edge controllers will leverage heavily. So we did provisioning, obviously, because the setup of an edge controller sort of relies on that. Plus, you can get a benefit out of using provisioning today just for the backup portion.
Nothing else, yeah.
If nothing else. But once the edge controllers are out, obviously it'll use it a lot, and then templates are the same way. Potentially doing that is maybe the next month's topic, because again, you could make use of them today if you're doing a lot of controllers with the same sort of points and things in them. But the edge controllers will leverage that heavily as well. But if you have any other ideas of anything, feel free to let us know.
Morning, George. All right. Yes.
Yes. If no one has anything else,
speak now or
hold your.
Hold next month, or reach out to us in between. That's not a problem either. But
and we'll have a recording of this up on BP Tech Center later this afternoon.
Oh, Frank, Doug, one question.
Yes, sir.
4.6 has no support for any of the old spaces?
You cannot run it on the legacy Jace, 300, 600, 200, 700. Only 8,000s. Yeah, it's an easy way to say it.
Yep, just wanted to verify.
Yeah, and that's not going to change going forward. Their legacy, and that's where they're going to stop with that support.
So they're obsoleting it all, huh?
Well, the 600, 700, 600s and the 300s, July 1st was the last purchase date. January 1st this year was the last purchase date of a 700 as well. So, yes.
Okay.
Hey, Doug,
700 has the same price.
Say again.
Hey, Frank, me and Doug was discussing something on the passphrase last week. We downloaded your videos, and could you go over a little bit how you could bypass the passphrases now, and does that somehow let you get a station out of a N4 Jace if you don't have credentials?
There is no bypassing a passphrase on a Jace unless you blow the Jace away.
That's it. Okay, so those videos are only, well, there's a couple of videos on there for passphrase resetting or.
You can reset the passphrase of a station that you already have. If you get a station from someone, and it has the passphrase, you can blow the passphrase out The problem is when you do that, you get rid of all the passwords on all of the users that were encrypted using that passphrase.
Will it only remove the passwords and nothing else?
Correct.
So everything else will be intact?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Now, if you have a GACE 8000 and you don't know its passphrase, or you don't know the platform credentials, there is no way, I'll say presently, to be able to recover from that, other than using the backup button and going into a factory reset, which means your JACE, your station, your modules, everything get blown away, and you're starting from scratch.
Right,
now,
so if you don't have
there is a mechanism.
you're screwed.
There is a mechanism that's coded in there. I believe 4.6 is the first place they have it, but they're doing nothing with it right now. There's hopefully going to be a way that an end user has the ability to send a request to Tritium with a token that comes out of that JACE, and Tritium would process it and then return, I guess it would be a token of some sort that's got a time, that's got an expiration on it, short time frame, where the owner can take it back to the JACE and reset the passphrase/credentials. I mean, that is something that they're looking at and working on. The last I heard, it was in the lawyer's hands. So with that, who knows if it'll come out. But the hopes are there for that.
Train had something like that for years, where you had to send them a notarized fax that you're the owner of the building or you have authority to get into the system, and they would give you a 5-minute password, something like that.
Yeah, I guess it's going to end up being something like that. But and it was only it was like a conversation I had with somebody at Tritium back at the summit, I think it was, where we were discussing it, and I mean, nothing's come of it since. So,
yeah.
Still doesn't exist. You still can't do it.
But they recognize that there's
yes.
a potential issue there.
Yeah, Eddie, this goes back to you and I discussing it and debating it back and forth with Tritium, I don't know, when I guess the 8000 first came out.
Yeah, exactly. You wrote a pretty good email. You said, hey, listen, it's like Windows 10, Windows 7. You lose your password, yeah, you're kind of screwed. It's going the way of security.
Right.
Yeah, but the customer doesn't want to hear that. They kicked out the other contractor, and the other contractor wasn't on it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's where that token would come in. You could have the new owner or whatever send a letter and whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Train used to call that the password of the day. It was based on the Mayan calendar.
So we'll have to wait and see what Tritium rolls out eventually, if they do.
Could you go over that new controller that's coming out, the Vicon, a little bit? The one you've been talking about there?
I mean, it's a
Edge 10.
The Edge 10 has, and I'm bringing it back up so I can look at the screen, it has 5 universal inputs, 2 analog outputs, and 3 digital outputs.
And then 2 Ethernet ports and a
485.
A single 485.
Yeah, the single 485 allows you to bring in, you can have it be BACnet MSTP for one device. You could use it as, you can have one IOR 32 or 34 device, only one, that can be on there as well, as extended I/O basically.
Interesting.
And it runs a flavor of Niagara, which for all intents and purposes is Niagara.
Niagara 4.7 is what it's built on right now.
And that's not out.
So you set it up, same software.
Yeah, no, it's they pre-announced it, I guess you could call it, for pre-ordering. I think it's not until probably another month before we'll actually see them releasing and shipping. We've got a beta 1 running here in our building. So they've been, it's been probably 2 months it's been out? Month?
For beta?
Yeah.
Could have longer than that, haven't we?
Yeah, maybe about 2 months. So I'm not sure exactly what they're, I guess part of it, they can't really release it until 4.7's released.
Right.
So they probably have other things that they're doing with 4.7 than just this device.
And 4.7 is a pretty big release.
Right.
So.
And it goes down the same road with the WinID, QNX, and licensing, everything?
Yeah, they're not revamping.
Well, yeah, the only difference really is there's no SMA for these.
For this controller.
For this controller, you get every version of Niagara 4.
Oh.
As they release a new version, you get it.
Right. So you don't have to
Oh,
pay
really? So you buy the... You mean unlimited upgrades as long as the controller's there?
Yes, but
wow.
It's obviously software. Its license is limited for the number of devices it can talk to, so you can't use it as a Jace.
Yeah, basically you're going to have one field device that can connect to it.
Yeah, it's a controller, not a Jace.
So you're going to connect on the Niagara?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so you got to pull in Niagara points.
Correct.
Do they still charge it as a device in the supervisor?
I would say so.
To some extent, it's going to be. I don't know exactly what the ultimate thing is going to be for it. I can't even think of what we did with ours here. It was we have a demo license on a supervisor, so that doesn't.
Well, you can see the device count though.
That's true. It should come up whether it's.
And the
does it come up
whether or not
Jace?
it's exempted.
What I want to know is, do they charge you a Jace license for it?
It's not going to be, no.
No, it's definitely not going to be a Jace license. I think it's going to count as a device,
a field
device on Jace, as a single device.
If we're a Honeywell dealer, could we buy them to use with our Honeywell? Or do you have to be Vicon?
I mean, it is a Vicon product. You can talk to your Verdi salesman.
Yeah, it would be interesting. I mean, it's sort of like their answer to unitary, like Vicon's answer to a unitary controller.
Well, this is Vicon's version of what Honeywell's doing with the F1. Honeywell's they're not moving forward with this Edge 10. They have their own path of what they're doing, which would be this F1 device.
And because Tritium has written all of this software that's included in a normal version of Niagara, all of their OEM partners have access to it, which means that you'll see a whole bunch of different versions of the Edge controller, if you want to call it that, from other OEM partners. Like you're going to see the F1, you'll see other stuff from other guys. I'm sure Johnson will have something at some point.
Hey, Frank, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
I got someone that wrote an IBEX driver. Tritium won't license it for him because he hasn't been to their developer school, but I have tested it at Sparks. You think EasyIO would license it?
I couldn't tell you. I have no idea.
And I'll send Lim an email, and because he doesn't want to ship it out until it's licensed, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't blame him.
Right.
And there's a lot of that IBEX stuff out there, so.
It's 20 years old.
See, who was I speaking to before that was doing a lot of EasyIOs? Is that Brian?
That was Brett. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was Brett that was talking.
Yeah, he's not on the call anymore. He left.
Okay, gotcha. I was wondering how the EasyIOs, you don't hear like down how many people are doing EasyIOs. How's that going? Are they still pretty big out there or what?
It seems to be, I think it's more people are starting to use it, yeah.
Maybe you just
I don't know about using it all the
much.
time for everything, but they're starting to find these applications where it makes sense to use them, where they might be priced out if they were to go with standard controls that they would, use in the past.
Well, we were using EZIOs under the JACEs all the time because we wanted a unitary control when we were doing Vicon, and this Edge will probably be sort of the answer to that, but in a way. All right.
Yeah, it's a smaller device or I/O count on it. Well, if you add your I/O 34, now you got a 44-point controller. So I guess you can make it a pretty big controller.
Oh yeah, the points are limited. Yeah.
With the EZIO controllers, I mean, you can use your FC20s as extended I/O. That's what I've done in the past.
Yeah, but 32, you can get up to what, about 52 points.
Yeah, just more around to make sure you don't run out of space.
Yeah.
It's all about running out of space.
Yep, resources.
Anything else?
I guess last call. Who else has anything to talk about?
The video for the provisioning section will be on the Brody website, or is it just to the people who signed up?
This whole call will be on the Brody website later this afternoon.
Oh, great. Okay.
So you will be able to hear yourself again if you'd like.
Not really.
I got a question, Frank. I've heard I'm doing a job at the FDA in Maryland, remotely. The 4.4 has to have the correct spider flash in the spider, correct? You can't use the one that we ship with. Some of the VAV boxes have been out there for 3 months.
Right. So what's your question?
Do you have to have the latest flash firmware in it to use 4.4?
There's no firmware requirements to upgrade to work with 4.4 now.
Okay, because there's a separate flash for it when I downloaded it.
I don't know of any features that are going to require anything with that. No, I know there's a newer firmware that just came out for the latest version of the reflash tool, which, well, it's been around for a few months, but found out recently in the last couple of weeks that the latest firmware, there is a bug that it fixes, that it only has certain scenarios where it comes into play. But if you're using a Spider and the TR42 and the occupancy override button, there's been scenarios where a error comes up on the screen and it's something like depth 200, depth 100, something like that on the screen, and that firmware resolves that issue.
Okay, we're using 71, so
not a problem.
All right, I just wanted to make sure because I didn't want to try to flash them from Florida to Maryland.
Yeah.
That was the only one I had.
All right.
All right, then. I think that is it.
Okay. Well, we'll get this posted later today. If anything else comes up, you can always reach out to us as you've always done and are able to do. Otherwise, look for a reminder for next month in a couple weeks with the topics, which most likely will be talking about the Edge 10 and I guess templating was what we just talked about, Matthew.
Potentially, yeah. Unless there's something. I mean, unless the Edge 10 is out or going to be out shortly thereafter, then we could just do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you for hosting.